Welcome to the video series Ethics for Authors, Navigating the World of Publishing. In this series, experts from the University of Queensland Library will address the most common problems that authors face when they go through the publishing cycle, from writing a paper through to its publication. We will talk you through ethical problems associated with authorship, conflict of interest, plagiarism, manuscript submissions, research fraud, and we will provide you with advice on how to deal with these problems well before they occur. In theory, authorship should be a straightforward concept, but there are many issues surrounding authorship. In one example, a deserving junior researcher was omitted from the author list. In another, a sponsoring company insisted on the inclusion of an opinion leader who had made virtually no contribution to a study. And in the third, a writer of a review article found her name replaced with that of her boss because she was on maternity leave when the final version was submitted. The argument here is that if scientists are dishonest about their relationship to their work, this undermines confidence in the reporting of the work itself. Well, there are best practice guides, rules, regulations, policies that exist to help researchers navigate publishing ethics, and UQ has a policy around authorship, 42004, which states, all persons designated as authors should qualify for authorship, and all those who qualify should be listed. But I am sure in some point in your research career, you may face ethical boundaries of authorship, something that is known as undeserved authorship. Those are ghost, guest, and gift authorships. Let me illustrate some of these concepts in the example from Coalition for Publishing Ethics. In 2017, a professor of higher education at Belgium University told Higher Education how he received an unsolicited email from an individual claiming to act on behalf of a large university in eastern China, which asked if he would be interested in accepting a distinguished visiting professorship. He replied to the email out of curiosity and was immediately sent a contract stating that he would be paid a total of 300,000 yuan if he produced a total of 3 journal papers appearing in the Web of Science, in which that Chinese university was listed as the first affiliated institution. The cash would be paid in monthly installments over 3 years, or alternatively in a lump sum when the journal article appeared. If the required publication did not materialize, the professor would be obliged to return the money he received. He was also invited to appear as a second or third author on a journal article in which an academic from that Chinese university will be the first author. Only 2 visits to the institution were stipulated in a contract, during which 2 or 4 speeches would be given to students according to that contract. This is an example of a guest authorship, where the name would be placed as a second or third together with other academics from that university to help increase the chances of publication and add credibility to the research outcomes. However, it is highly unethical that the service is being paid for, and although the author name would be listed, his authorship was solicited and he does not have a true research affiliation with that university in China. It's a very interesting example and something to think about. To avoid ethical dilemmas about authorship, please follow UQ Authorship Policy 42004, according to which, to be credited as an author, one or more criteria from the list should be met: substantial contribution to the study concept and design, data acquisition, analysis and interpretation, drafting or revising the article for intellectual content, approval of the final version. Hopefully, by then, your paper is not going to look like that. By the way, the order of authors on a publication is also among common authorship problems and disputes. The order and the number of authors in a publication varies and will depend on the discipline. In HAS disciplines, single authorship is very common, while in STEM disciplines, large number of authors on a publication is prevalent. A physics paper with 5,154 authors has, as far as anyone knows, broken the record for the largest number of contributors to a single research article. It was reflective of thousands of scientists and engineers that have worked together on a large project. Only the first 9 pages in the 33-page article describe the research itself, including references. The other 24 pages list the authors and their institutions. We recommend that you talk to your supervisor or senior colleagues to learn what is standard in your discipline. List your co-authors correctly, and of course provide your affiliation in accordance with UQ policy. Entering your affiliation correctly will ensure that the university is appropriately recognized in a research output. All UQ authors are required to cite the University of Queensland as the primary institution, followed by institute, school, centre, and then campus, state, postal code, and country, as you see in the examples on this slide. We've discussed some of the authorship problems and learned that people generally lie about authorship in 2 ways: by putting down names of people who took little or no part in the research, that is gift authorship, or by leaving out names of people who did take part, that is ghost authorship. By now, you may be thinking, what is the best way to avoid authorship disputes? Well, there is a formula. You can start discussing authorship when you plan your research. Raise the subject right at the start. Start gathering views of all team members and, if possible, discuss authorship at a face-to-face meeting. Even before the study is finished, you should have some idea of publications that might come out of it, such as a conference article and the full paper, then some supplementary papers, and who is likely to be most involved in this. Continue to discuss ideas about authorship as the project evolves, and especially if new people get involved. Keep a written record of your contributions and your discussions. Many authorship difficulties arise because of misplaced expectations and poor communication. So it is important that before you start to write up your project, you confirm in writing who will be doing what and by when. Ideally, you should do this face-to-face, though this may not always be possible. So keep everyone informed of any changes with a written note of your decisions. This is quite an informal way, but there are also formalized authorship agreements that you or your co-authors may want to consider signing. So disputes which arise over authorship require some negotiation. So if you remain unhappy with your supervisor's or your co-author's decision, you may consider an appeal to someone more senior, such as head of the department or dean. But you should do this in exceptional circumstances only, and make sure your supervisors know what you are intending to do. First, discuss with the person in question. Then, in the team, with the supervisor, with research lead, with university ethics department, and with the editor. The dilemma is quite big. Should you say nothing and therefore be complicit in the unethical behavior, or should you blow the whistle, even though this might damage your career prospects or future funding? We recommend a third way, which is to explain the fact that the suggested author list contravenes editor's recommendations and could be considered scientific misconduct. Again, stick to the facts and avoid being emotional. Point out that the editor could well decline to publish an article if he or she finds out. Familiarize with the key authorship concepts early, as they will really help you navigate successfully in the publishing world. For example, acknowledgements. Contributions to a research project that do not merit authorship should be acknowledged. Appeals. Every journal will have a procedure allowing to dispute authorship. Some journals have an ombudsman, but they generally only deal with cases of alleged misconduct by the journal. Contributorship. Authors should state their contribution to the project. It's not an option in every journal, but it is becoming a common practice. Corresponding author is the person who receives the reviewer's comments and proofs, and whose contact details are printed on the article so that readers can request reprints or contact the research group. First and last authors. The first named author is generally held to have made the greatest contribution to the research article. Sometimes significance is also attached to being the last named author, but that will largely depend on your discipline. Now we have discussed ghost and gift authors and touched on group authorship. Sometimes journals permit the use of a group name, for example, the XYZ study group. We talked about the number of authors. There are no strict rules about that, and you probably still remember the example with over 500 authors on a physics paper. And also the order of authors, which should be a joint decision of the co-authors, but it will also depend on your discipline. So one concept we haven't actually discussed is guarantor, which means the one or more authors should take responsibility for the integrity of the work from inception to published article. So this terminology is very useful to know to help you navigate ethically through the publishing process. Hopefully, this video made it clear that authorship problems are very complex, but they are avoidable, where ethical standards are upheld and where planning and clear communication are in place. In the next video of the series, we will discuss conflicts of interest, plagiarism, manuscript submissions, and research fraud. Thanks for watching. There's more to talk about. See you on the next video.